Gosh, what a rich and amazing conversation this has been. And I think maybe what poetry adds to it is the fact that literature is an immensely rich archive of the history of the whole range of feelings we associate with wonder and awe. I was trying to think where to start here. One of the places I turned immediately in the Western tradition was to Immanuel Kant's 1797 essay around the beginning of the Romantic period on the difference between beauty and sublimity, and the way they call forth different, he associates beauty with wonder and sublimity with beauty plus terror equals awe, was that set of associations in that tradition. And he speaks, just to add this to the conversation of the day, he has one chapter in which he talks about this engendered terms, that the response to beauty is associated for him with the feminine, 1798, and awe with the masculine, that the Father God and his terror and the rule giver lurking up there is associated with awe. And when we're responding to harmony, nurturing universe, we're responding to the feminine side of this equation. It's uncomfortable for us to think in gendered terms about this, so it's really interesting that he did. And so I thought I would bring this to the surface. In the Western tradition, thinking about awe really begins with Aristotle and tragedy. He was a biologist, basically, Aristotle, and he looked at all of his neighbors. What they really loved to do was go see plays in which really powerful people go too far and are brought down. And he said, why and what's going on there? And he identified the emotion associated with it as catharsis, which was a Greek word for if you violated a taboo in your family or your clan, before you entered the house, there was a place where you could do ritual cleansing with water and with oils. And that ritual cleansing was called catharsis. And he said, I see, what's going on is like washing your hands before you go in the house so you don't bring the bad demons in with you. That's what we go to see, whoa, he slept with his mother and killed his father and then gouged out his eyes when he realized that he did that. Whoa! Here are two translations of how that ends. One by the wonderful playwright Ellen McLaughlin's version of this. The chorus says at the end, we have seen this. We have seen this. We are cursed now with knowledge. We can never return to innocence. Go, King, go. We will live in your absence. We will go on. And for the rest of time, all we will be doing is trying to forget you. That's somebody who had read Freud translating. Here's the standard classical translation. People of Thebes, my countrymen, look on Oedipus. He solved the famous riddle with his brilliance. He rose to power, a man beyond all power. Who could behold his greatness without envy? Now what a black sea of terror has overwhelmed him. Now as we keep our watch and wait the final day, count no man happy till he dies free of pain at last. Whoa, in their version. So I went ahead to Shakespeare to see what happens to woe and wonder there. Hamlet, the end. That whole family, they're all dead on the stage. Hamlet is dead, his mother's dead, his stepfather's dead, his lover's brother is dead. And his friend comes onto the stage, and Hamlet says, oh, I die, Horatio, the potent poison quite o'ercrows my spirit. And Horatio says, now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flight of angels sing thee to thy rest. And then the healthy warrior comes in at the end of the play and says, what's this sight? And Horatio, his friend, says, what is it you would see? If aught of woe or wonder you are looking for, then cease your search. That's how that ends. And the moment when Cleopatra dies in Antony and Cleopatra, and Caesar comes in, who wanted to take her as a symbol of his victory over Antony and put her in a chariot and drive her through Rome. And she said, nobody's going to do that to me, and put the snake to her heart. And he comes in and said, they say she killed herself. Most probable that so she died. For her physician tells me she hath pursued conclusion infinite of easy ways to die. Take up her bed and bear her women from the monument. She shall be married by her Anthony, no grave on earth shall clip in it a pair so famous. High events as these strike those that make them, and their story is no less in pity than in glory, which brought them to be lamented here. Let lions loose in the civil streets. Let the earth crack and shiver at its core. Whoa. End of that. Woe in small things in poetry and woe in large. The most woeing thing in Japanese tradition was going to see Mount Fuji. And every haiku poet had to write one poem about going to see Mount Fuji. This connects us to to just going out and looking at the lawn in Long Island City, if that's the nature you have in front of you. Basho, the great originator of the haiku tradition, his poem about Mount Fuji goes like this: misty day, can't see Fuji. Interesting. In the haiku tradition, you get really an incredible encapsulation, kind of like those photographs of Steve Curry's face of our whole range of emotions around wonder, awe, at what makes sense of the world. Another one that occurred to me that has that element of peacefulness and beauty in it is one by Busan. That part of Japan is a lot like California, and in the spring, mustard flowers made the hillsides yellow, as they do here, at just the time when the whales are migrating by. Kind of imitating Basho's poem, he wrote a poem about whale watching that goes, yellow mustard staining the grasses down to the sea, no whales. He has another one that just goes, a field of mustard, the sun in the east, the moon in the west. Recording balance. Basho has one about mountain climbing, hiking in those places, and it goes, hailstones glancing off the rocks in Stony Pass. The whole thing. Hailstones glancing off, hard things hitting hard things in a hard place. Whoa. Hailstones glancing off the rocks on Stony Pass. And maybe the deepest one in terms of Docker's and other scholars' ideas of how to do these associations of these really in some way isolating experiences of wonder and awe. They're ones that bring us back to ourselves and our mortality. People don't walk out of tragedies clapping. They walk out of tragedies feeling their solitary existence. They walk out of comedies clapping. So how the solitary making emotions of awe and wonder become social emotions is really an interesting question. And sharing them through the arts is certainly one of the way it happens. And it happens because at the moment when opening ourselves up to our own solitary lives opens us to the lives of others. And the Basho poem on this subject just goes, deep autumn, my neighbor, how does he live, I wonder? Amazing poem. And that taking those isolating emotions and putting them in a place where they're shared is what Emily Dickinson did all through the middle of the 19th century in some of the most amazing poems in the language. And they're often poems about, basically about low blood sugar, you know. There's a poem that goes, there's a certain slant, you have to think of it, it's like 1850. I've actually been in that house and seen the way the winter light comes through those windows. There's a certain slant of light, winter afternoons, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes. Heavenly hurt it gives us. Everybody know that feeling? You know, heavenly, and in terms of the sublime, notice, this is big where it's coming from. Heavenly hurt it gives us. We can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. None may touch it any. 'Tis the sealed despair, an imperial affliction sent us of the air. When it comes, the landscape listens. Shadows hold their breath. When it goes, just like the distance on the look of death. Whoa. Whoa. And in her, it's kind of endless, that the infinity of longing and desire that is the hugeness which she tries to come to terms with in an era when the idea of a big no-daddy God is fading, but the immensity of the feelings that go with it still have to be accounted for. Bringing it home and nearer to home, I thought I would look at a mountain climbing poem by Gary Snyder, our beloved poet of this region, and at a poem of his called Burning the Small Dead. And this comes to this question of how do we in the 20th, 21st century, how do we take this stuff that built cathedrals and to an imagined deity and connect to that power? Here's Gary Snyder in the mountains, burning the small dead branches broke from beneath a thick spreading white bark pine. 100 summers, snow melt, rock and air, hiss in a twisted bough. Sierra granite, Mount Ritter, black rock twice as old, Deneb, Altair, windy fire. Couple of details and I'll be through with this. When you're up there where the white bark pine are in the Sierras, you can almost always see Mount Ritter. Mount Ritter's chocolate brown, different from Sierra granite. Two different great fires. The great fire that made Mount Ritter, the great fire that boiled Sierra granite into that thing we have now. He makes a little fire out of branches. He looks up and sees that the whole mountain has been shaped by fire, and then he looks up at the summer stars, Deneb, Altair, and sees their fire. And he's studying Buddhism, so he knows Buddha had a fire sermon in which he said, "Bhikkhus, we are all burning." I'll read it again and then lunch. Burning the small dead branches broke from beneath thick spreading white bark pine. 100 summers, snow melt, rock and air hiss in a twisted bough. Sierra granite, Mount Ritter, black rock twice as old, Deneb, Altair, windy fire. Whoa. Thank you all very much.